Hi, guys. This is Mrs. Harrell. I have a story that I'd like to share with you today. And the title of my story is called Big Al. Big Al is a fish living in the ocean, and he has encountered a problem. A group of fish, or all the other fish in the ocean, they don't want to be friends with Big Al. Now, Big Al is probably the most friendliest, nicest fish that anyone could ever meet. But the other fish, they just don't like Big Al. And it's not because of something he done, it's because of the way that he looks. Have you ever had a time when someone just didn't like you because of the way you looked? Or maybe you don't even know the reason why they didn't like you. It wasn't because you stole their favorite toy because you didn't do it. It wasn't because you took their candy because you didn't do it. You don't know why, but they don't like you. That's the problem that Big Al has in the story that I'm sharing with you today. We're going to find out what those other fish found out about Big Al once they got to know him. Title of the story again is Big Al. The author of the story is Andrew Clements. The illustrator, his name is Yoshi. Remember, the illustrator makes the beautiful pictures. The author writes the story. Big Al. In the wide blue sea, there was a very friendly fish. His name was Big Al. You could not find a nicer fish. But Big Al was also very scary. Take a look at Big Al. It's not his fault that he was scary. He was just made that way. Other fish seemed to have at least one friend, and some fish had many friends, but Big Al had none. He did not really blame the other fish. How could he expect little fish to trust a great big fish with eyes and skin and teeth like his? So Big Al was lonely and he cried big salty tears into the big salty sea. I'm going to take a second. I want to reread something. The story says, how could he expect little fish to trust a great big fish with eyes and skin and teeth like his? That's pretty sad, isn't it? After all, they're all fish. On the inside, they look the same, no matter what they look like on the outside. Inside, they have gills, they all have teeth, they have eyes. If they were caught on a fisherman's hook, they would all bleed the same color blood, right? They're all the same on the inside, and yet they don't like poor Big Al because of the way that his skin looks. It's pretty sad. Big Al really wanted friends, so he worked at it. First, he tried wrapping himself up with seaweed. He thought it was a great disguise, but no one else did. Who wants to stop and talk to a floating plant that has big, sharp teeth? Then he thought that if he puffed himself up round, the other fish would laugh and they would see how clever and how silly he could be. All they saw was how big he could be, and they steered clear of Big Al. They stayed away from him. Hmm, I'm having some thoughts about the different things that Big Al is doing. I'm thinking that you should really just try being yourself, right? Very early one morning, Big Al, he went down to the bottom and he flopped and he wiggled himself into the sand until he was almost covered up. He looked much smaller. When other fish came near, Big Al talked and he joked with them and he had a delightful time. But then one scratchy little grain of sand got stuck in his gills and and he he sneezed. Achoo! When the sand cleared away, all the other fish, they were gone. Hmm. Big Al even changed his color one day so he could look like he belonged to a school of tiny fish passing by. He bubbled along with them for a while, laughing and feeling like he was just one of the crowd. But he was so big and he was so clumsy that when all the tiny fish darted to the left and then quickly darted back to the right, Big Al just plowed straight ahead. He went bumping and thumping right into the little fish. Before he could even say, "Excuse me," they were gone. And he was all alone again, sadder than he was before. Just when Big Al was starting to be sure that he would never have a single friend, something happened. He was floating along sadly. He was watching some of the smaller fish, and he was wishing that they would come closer to him. As he watched, a net dropped down silently from above, and in an instant, oh, they were all caught. Big Al forgot all about being lonely and he forgot all about being sad. His eyes bulged out bigger and rounder than ever, and with a mighty flip of his tail, he opened his mouth and he charged straight at the net. Oh, that net was strong, but Big Al was stronger. He ripped right through it, and all the little fish rushed out through the hole. He saved them. What a good friend. But when Big Al turned around and he tried to go out of the hole, he got all tangled up in the net. He was stuck. The net went higher and higher toward the bright surface of the sea, and the little fish watched Big Al as he disappeared above them. When the little fish were able to speak again, all they talked about was the huge, wonderful fish that had saved them. How great to be free, but what a shame that that big fellow had been captured. Just then, there was a tremendous crashing splash from above them, and the small fish darted away. Was it the net again? Oh, not at all. It was Big Al. Those fishermen took one look at him and they threw him right back into the ocean. And now there is one huge, puffy, scary, fierce looking fish in the sea who has more friends than anyone else. And his name is Big Al. The end. That's the story of Big Al. Before we go, I'd like to discuss some things that made me think a little bit in this story, Big Al. On one of the pages, it was the page where Big Al went to the bottom of the ocean, and it says that he tried to make himself smaller. Remember, Big Al is one of the biggest fish in the sea, and to get more friends, he tried to make himself become smaller than what he was. Boys and girls, you should never make yourself smaller for other people to like you. Just be yourself. That's the most important thing. On another page, Big Al tried to make himself funny. He worked at it really hard until he puffed himself up into this big giant ball, trying to make the other fish laugh at him, trying to see if that would make them like him better. Mm-mm. You don't have to do outlandish things to make people or other fish like you better, right? The best thing you can do is to be yourself. Big L tried to camouflage himself. He tried to fit in. He tried to look like the other fish. That didn't work. But when Big Al allowed himself to just be Big Al, to be the nicest, friendliest, bravest fish around, and he showed what a good friend he could be to the other fish, that's when they learned who Big Al really was, a wonderful friend. There's something that we used to say when I was a kid, and it was never judge a book by its cover. That means, boys and girls, you never look at someone and you think something about them just because of the way that they look. Take some time and get to know the people that you would like to be your friends. You might be surprised at how similar you are and not how different you are. This is the story of Big Al. I hope you enjoyed it today. I really enjoyed reading it to you. Until next time, this is Mrs. Harrell with Storytime. See you later.